friends.
Hello.
Welcome back to Where Are We Growing?
Hello. This is a very special episode.
Yeah, this is a special episode. Well, first of all, we're in a new location. We love we're growing from somewhere new. But we also have another special guest. Yay! This is Eve, you guys. This is LECA Addict. If you follow me on, I'm sure, Instagram and TikTok, I've mentioned her. The person who got me into LECA, she's also local with us as well, so we're all together. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, happy to be here. We're just here to talk pretty much all about LECA, and it's going to be a good one.
Yeah,
I get a lot
I'm
of
excited
questions.
to learn.
Yeah, because you're new.
I'm a dabbler. Like, I've had LECA for a year. Mm-hmm. I just haven't committed to it yet.
Yeah, people need to take that first step. It only takes one plant. You just need that one, I think, or it takes like one plant to start thriving. I guess if you have like a bad LECA experience, you maybe didn't do it right. You're like, oh, I don't want to do it, but once it takes off, you're like, it's hooked.
Yeah, I see. I got to get over the committing to cleaning off the roots. That just seems like a process that I need to mentally prepare for.
Some are easier than others. I mean,
some are easy, some are difficult. Like Hoyas, I cut them off. I just
because I guess Hoyas are easy to root. When I found out you could root them from like any part of the plant, I was like, what?
Yeah, there's no, there's nothing. You just stick them in LECA and they root. It's awesome.
It's so magical.
But yeah, phylos and some of the other plants, they're super easy to clean off the roots. Just rinse them underwater and they're gone.
It's tedious.
Yeah. Hoya roots, no.
Just like I'm not because they're really fine. I guess Hoya roots are really small,
super thin. Yeah, and I found that if you leave any bits of roots on or any dirt on, they just rot. And they'll set the plant back. Like, it won't grow any roots, any new ones. So it just sits there and it doesn't do anything. And that's a lot of people's Hoyas in soil. They don't do anything. Mm-hmm. I think it's because of partial root rot. It just sits there.
It's like focusing on like, okay, I'm like healing. I'm unsure what to do. But yeah, it's like just start fresh. I think I did that for when I tried string of pearls in micro LECA. I think I'm going to try string of pearls again, maybe. I don't know. We have a couple example plants in front of us. I have my string of hearts here in micro LECA. I brought it because I'm really proud of it and I want to show it off for you.
It's so cute.
Like, I can't believe that's growth. It was literally an experiment. I didn't expect that to take off.
Yeah, I have hearts in LECA and in pond right now.
I might try the pearls again, but yeah, those ones I figured because of the roots being so fine, I would just chop and start over.
Yeah, I had to do that with my peperonias. The roots were super fine that you couldn't even clean them, so you have to water root them, and then you put them in LECA, and they're happy.
When people ask me what to do the first time you're transitioning to LECA, I usually say just start with a plant you're comfortable with in general. Usually for me that's philodendron. For a lot of people that's something like a philodendron or monstera, but if you're like new and you don't want to clean off the roots, I always recommend starting with a water propagation because the roots are ready to go. They're already clean and it's perfect. Well, Eve, let's talk about you a little bit. How long have you been into plants in general? Like how did your plant journey start?
Oh yeah, it's been forever. Probably a decade of houseplant growing, and I kind of remember this because when we got our first house, I was more into plants. Before that, when we were in an apartment, I killed a lucky bamboo. And I don't know how
haven't we all?
I had that early on, too. I've tried a couple times, never again.
But I feel like I was never really a good plant parent, I was just like, I'll just water it whenever I feel like it. It was never really a big commitment. I was more into the outdoor plants than the indoor plants. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of perennials, and when we moved into the new house, I was like, well, I got more room, I can get more plants. But like we said about the pilea, right? Like I would get these plants and I put them in soil and they would just be sad. And I didn't really know what to do with it and I didn't really care, Well,
it's not for me.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I'll just move on to the next one. But it was really my love for orchids that really started everything. Because I love growing orchids, but orchids are really, really hard to grow.
So were you, at that time, you were killing just generic houseplants, but were you keeping orchids alive?
I killed a few. And then I kind of learned about how to grow orchids, and they're different, right? Phalaenopsis, dendrobiums, cattleyas, they're all different. And their care is different. So I ended up getting used to growing in bark, and I like bark. And I would soak my orchids for like 30 minutes, and I would leave them out, and then they dry out for a week, and then I would repeat the process. And it was so tedious. It was like there were so many orchids, and I had to soak it, and I had to remember to take them out, and it was just too much. And so
you miss the water, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, and then they just look sad, and they decline, or they drop all their flowers, and you're like, oh, I worked on a whole year for that flower.
Oh my gosh, that's so much commitment.
Yeah, so that's how I found LECA, through orchid growing. That's how I started. That's how I learned, is from some really, really good orchid growers.
I haven't thought about that. I guess I don't really follow a lot of orchid people, but I don't think about orchids when I think about LECA. That's crazy. How many years then have you been into LECA?
So I started, I want to say, during the pandemic. It was right at the beginning, like in March. I was looking around because I was bored, like you're stuck at home. You have nothing to do.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, well, what can I take to the next level, right? What can I geek out on? And it was houseplants. And especially during last summer, I was like doing a lot of outdoor gardening too. And I tweaked my back. I was like, oh, I'm so old. Oh, no. I tweaked my back and it hurt. And so I was like, well, houseplants it is. So I really started moving a lot. Before then, it was just a lot of research and reading. I'm one of those people that just needs to learn everything before I try. It's not even that. It's just I need to learn from credible sources. I'm an engineer at heart, by trade, and when you go onto some of these forums or when you watch YouTube videos, it's like, oh, you've been growing for a day. That's great.
I was going to try and be really specific of like, hey guys, I'm trying this for the first time right now. Like, let's do this together. I'm not telling you how to. Let's figure it out.
And it's great, to like experiment and look for resources, but you get to a certain point where you're like, I just need to know what to do, right? I remember going through YouTube videos too, and it was like days and days of just watching content and ads and a lot of content, a lot of ads, a lot of people talking about their dogs, and it's YouTube land, right? It's hard to find content, but once you get to a level, you're like, oh, I'm comfortable with doing this. I'm going to start doing some of it. I started with orchids, and it takes a while to transition, and the prime transition period is like when they're in a state of growth. So that's really in the springtime when they're sending out new roots. It's the easiest. So I started in about spring, summertime, and tried with a few orchids. And once I established my confidence with orchids, that's when I moved over to houseplants.
Cool.
And so many, like I've learned, I had no idea, but so many people do different setups. Like there's a lot of ways to do LECA. I don't know if a lot of people, I'm sure people get really, take their plant care very personally, but I don't know if you consider any like right way to do everything. I know that there's like, I always tell people like what works for me might not work for you, but I didn't realize how many ways you could set up LECA, how many plants you can try it with, and I don't know, even like the different options for nutrients. There's just like so many things. How did you like land on your exact setup? Yeah, and I don't necessarily have an exact setup. It's all trial and error, dependent on plants. So, for example, I started with orchids in that submerged method, right? There's no inner pot, and outer pot combo. It was just orchid in a pot. Because that's the way that the guy that I learned it from did it. His name is Ray. First Rays is his company name, and he sells a lot of the nutrients and stuff for orchids. He started like, I want to say 40 years ago. And he started growing orchids semi-hydroponically via just growing vegetables in LECA. And he adapted the method to orchids, and there's, he has a ton of
really great resources about it. So I learned from him. So that's how I started. And then I was like, well, his way of flushing is really hard. I don't like it because in his setup, it's kind of weird because you would have this like draining tray, and then he would put all of his orchids on there with the hole burnt into the container about 1/3 way up. And what he would do is, in a flush, he would take nutrient water and just dump it really fast into the container, and it would flow out. That's a flush.
Oh, it would fill it up and then flush it.
And then it flush it quickly, and then it would drain out. In with like this tray had a pipe attached to it, and it would drain at the bottom. So it was really easy if you have that set up, but if you don't,
if you're not a horticulturalist,
if you have that set up, if you have a giant trough with a hole,
so nobody has that setup, right? So I was like, flushing for me is really hard because I'd have to like run tap water through it, and then I dump it out in my sink, and then like when I do the dumping motion, like liquid fall everywhere. Yeah. So I was like, well, what's this other method? And so this is the other resource that I really, really like learning about LECA from. It's the Orchid Room on YouTube. Her name is Annabelle. And she had this way of doing the inner pot, outer pot setup. And she didn't really have a name for it. Like, it was until I did a lot of research into the hydroponics world that I learned that was called a nutrient stagnant wicking setup. Because if you like look at all of the literature and all the scientific papers, that's how what they refer to as nutrient stagnant wicking.
Oh,
NSW.
I love that. Yeah, I have a lot of mine just pot in the reservoir. I don't think I use wicks for any of mine, but yeah, having it in a separate pot in general, I like to be able to flush it all the way through. And I do a lot of makeshift LECA pots because I have your LECA pots now. But before you had those, obviously I had to improvise. And you can do a lot of things with, or for your LECA setup. I do, for a lot of them, even just a normal plant pot, just a normal nursery pot. You can't see into it, which is like a bummer. But it has drainage in the bottom. I can fill it up with LECA just fine. And then you can put it literally in any cup. I have my string of hearts here in a, like, I think I use this for soup, this mug. I think I used it for soup when I was sick. And I'm not even kidding you. I think that...
deli containers are my favorite.
Yes, it's just a short little... I don't even know someone probably sent me a plant or some propagation in that. But
after they had their potato salad.
Yeah, we have some fun little algae growing on the side too. Cuteness. And I just, for the first time, because I took your, so with your LECA, because you have, for everyone who's listening for the first time, is like, what are you talking about? Eve has a, I don't know what you call it, your LECA kit. It's just a LECA kit, like a starter kit. And in the measurements and in the instructions, it says that you can do like 4 to 8 drops of each per like half a cup of water or whatever. And I took that and ran with it. That's pretty much what I do all the time. People ask me like, can you talk about the nutrients? And I'm like, I'm very like low maintenance. I don't check the pH. By the way, do you check your pH? You're nerdy, so what am I kidding?
Well, that's the thing, when you have as many plants as I do, checking the pH for every single nutrient mix you do. Nope, I don't.
Yeah, I can barely do it for my fish tank, which you have to do.
The thing is with pHing, so the history of hydroponics growing, it's really been propelled by the cannabis industry, right? There's so much research in weed growing communities that that's where a lot of really good information comes from.
And technology, right?
For sure, like grow lights, hydroponics, nutrients. I think one of the reasons you pH in those setups is for optimal yield and growth. And for me, it's like, I don't care if my Hoya I'm not smoking it.
We're not collecting the fruits of our labor. We're not doing it. We're just here. It's just, I don't check the pH of my soil. You know what I mean? Like, it's so much work. I'm very lazy with my, like, watering in my, like, houseplants, too. I usually just take don't come for me, everybody. I take a couple like, literally I have a dropper of my fertilizer. I put a couple drops in my watering can.
Yeah.
Boom. That's
as long as they're getting some type of nutrients.
Yeah, a little bit. I know I'm not giving it too much, but and then a little bit. Like now, Brandon's been slinging the fish water over to me So I've been giving my plants a little bit of fish water.
I love fish tank water.
Except the most
High
recent one
nitrogen.
you give me has been in my car, so it's been cooking a little bit.
Ooh.
Delicious. But yes, let's talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions about LECA. I don't know what the most like common questions you get, but what's something or some of the things you think people are getting completely wrong at first or messing up on?
So I know when I started, I was like, this rinsing root thing, like, it can't be that bad if I put something in there. Yeah, that's a big no-no. It'll be okay for a while, and then it'll degrade over time, and you're like, oh, my plant's dead. So really try to clean those roots off as much as you can.
Be diligent.
Yeah, be diligent.
You only have to do it one time.
Yeah.
It's just one time.
Or just cut the roots off and restart, you know. With Hoyas, like I said, I restart them. With Philos and Monsteras, I clean off the roots. It's super easy. Use the nozzle hose or the sprayer hose on your
a little
sink.
bit of pressure.
Yeah, just pressure.
Oh, yes.
Comes right off.
Yeah, because I have one of those like fold out things that go on your sink where you can like water your plants, and I just like lay the roots on there and go to town. And sometimes you can use a toothbrush for those of you who I don't know, or want to be a little bit more diligent. I can just rinse it off with water. I haven't had an issue.
I use my nails.
Yeah,
just
or
a
my
little bit.
fingers will just like rub it off a little bit. It's not a big deal. Easy peasy. I also think, I don't know, when people are putting like plants in a jar with LECA, I feel like that, in my opinion, I feel like that's like, okay, if you want to propagate in there, that's fine. Long term, I feel like that's like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
That's one of the reasons I like the 2-pot setup, because so for example, I would have a Hoya, for example, in a glass jar, right? After about 6 months to a year, all of the roots that get stuck to the bottom, because they will go down into the water source, all of those roots will start rotting over time. And that's fairly normal for roots that are sitting in water. And so if you have it in a jar, you have to like unpot it, clean off all the roots, repot it. It's so much work. I put it in 2 pots because what you can do is you can lift the inner pot, and usually there'll be roots growing down along the wick or out of these holes. And at some time, I'll see the roots from this setup will rot as well. You just pull them off, right? You just pull them off from the bottom, and then you set it back on, and it just grows new roots.
Nice.
Yeah, it's so much easier with the 2-pot setup than the 1-pot. And yeah, I love it.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
What are you going to try in yours?
I don't know. I have some imports coming. Okay, so
Let's talk imports.
Have you imported plants?
Yes.
And do you put them straight into LECA ever? And if so, what is your process with that?
Yeah, so I kind of love imported plants because they come bare root. Right? You just stick them in there and boom.
Smart.
I would recommend using some rooting hormone or rooting solution with it. I use the Kelp Max from Ray's website. It is seaweed kelp based. It's awesome. It's the same active ingredient in Super Thrive. I know people rave about Super Thrive.
And Liquid Dirt.
Yeah.
I don't know anything else Liquid Dirt who doesn't have a code for Liquid Dirt, so
Yeah.
that's all I'll say.
So I am not I'm not on the Super Thrive train. I'm definitely not on the Liquid Dirt train.
Oh, you heard it here.
Shots fired.
Shots fired. The thing is, I have Super Thrive. I've only used it once in like a water propagation with Monstera, and it like rotted. I did not use very much. I swear I put a drop in that water and then dumped half of it out and then dumped more in and then dumped half, like to keep diluting it. And it rotted. And I was just like, you know what? I think Super Thrive, things like that, it's not needed unless your plant is like in distress. It's the last, because I know that some people also like soak their moss in Super Thrive. If you're like potting things, trying to like rehab stuff in moss.
That's really all I use it for.
If your
like
plant is already
spraying in moss.
thriving, I don't see a reason to like, I don't know, kick it like that. I mean, I know I'm like handsy with my plants, but
Yeah. All Super Thrive has done for me is just molded my soil.
yeah,
And I'm like,
you don't need that. Just feed it normal stuff, or not at all, if that's what you want to do. If you want to not feed your plants,
Yeah, and it's expensive for what you get, you know? Like that little bottle costs
yeah.
like $8.
I don't know where I was, but I saw the big bottle, and I was like, whoa.
oh way too much. And it's been around for so long. What is the, doesn't the cover say on it? Like,
Oh, it was a winner of the World Fair.
in what, 18 something?
Probably. Forever ago. When was it? The last World Fair was like 100 years ago, so.
Oh my God, yes, you're right. Let's also quick go over, because I feel like we maybe skipped over it, just like the overall benefits of LECA, like compared to, I mean, everyone's using soil. It's what you buy all your plants in. I honestly think that as a new plant parent, soil is a hard thing to understand. It is a hard concept to get. And it, also with all of the like add-ins with it, I think that if some plants were like sold in LECA or more plants sold in LECA, I don't even know. What, can you buy any plants in LECA out there at stores?
Not really.
It's like I've never seen one.
Unless it's like a specialty plant shop, I'm sure some
There
of them
are a
have
few
like things
out there.
But like, I think that LECA is way easier than it sounds, because you guys, you're starting with soil. That is hard.
Yeah. For me, the benefit, like when I used to kill plants all over the place, I mean, it's really a not understanding how much soil holds onto moisture, and it's a watering issue. For everybody who kills plants, it's a watering issue. And for me, LECA takes that out of the equation completely.
Oh, yeah.
So what I do, my routine is I'll water my plants probably once every 2 weeks. And by water, I just fill up the water reservoir, and that's it. I don't have to, like, stick my finger in the dirt and gauge how wet it is for every single plant, because every plant has different watering requirements. And some wants to dry out completely, some wants to stay moist all the time. Like, I don't got time for that in my head. I got 300 plants. I don't got time for that. So I'll left, my reservoir thing here. Sometimes I use pots with the little gauge, so you can kind of see how much water is in the reservoir. I just, mix my nutrient water in batches in like 1 to 5 gallons. And then I just go over all my plants and I just give them water. And so taking the watering out of the equation, I think helps a lot of people with growing, especially Hoyas too. Hoyas are very complicated between different species.
They can stay so dry for so long.
And I've never met a Hoya that did not like LECA. But not to say that every single plant should be in LECA, because there are some plants that are really terrible at self-regulating water. They'll just take in too much and they're like, oh my God, I'm dying.
I don't know what to do with this. Like consistent moisture, what? Yeah, and I think what people are forgetting is stuff like LECA has that oxygen flow in there, and soil, when it's wet, really does not.
Yeah.
It's not as easy. And
that's why we're growing orchids in LECA, because of the extra oxygen that it provides.
Oh, yeah, because that's why they come in those little like flimsy little pots with like almost nothing in it, because the roots are like, hi, I need to breathe. And also people ask a lot about the difference in pests with LECA. So what pests are you less likely to get, and also what does the treatment for that look like?
So the biggest reduction in pests is fungus gnats. If I notice a fungus gnat running around, I'm like, oh, one of my plants is old, like the roots are rotting, because that's the only time I'll get fungus gnats.
There's an issue.
There's an issue with somebody, right, with one of the plants. But you will get the other pests. It's just how it is. But treatment of that pest becomes super easy. I was just telling these guys before we started recording that I'm going through an Azamax regimen, which means I replace all of the reservoir water with a systemic dilution of Azamax, which is a systemic pesticide. So I'll put the Azamax in all of the reservoirs for about a week, and I'll just let the plant soak it up. Then I dump it all out, replace it with nutrient water, and then I'll maybe repeat in another 2 weeks or another 3 weeks. And in addition, what you can do is a lot of people will try to spray every single nook and cranny of a plant, right? What you can do is you can get a giant vat, like a 2-gallon bucket of your treatment, right? And you just dunk the entire plant in. So what I'll do is you can't see me, but I'll put my hand on the top of the plant, and I'll try to protect the LECA as much as I can.
It doesn't start floating everywhere.
And I put it into the solution, and I'll try to drown it like it's my enemy. I'm like, die, plant. No, just kidding, not die. And then I'll leave it down there for, however you want to do it, 5 seconds to a minute if you have time to, with your hands sitting in a gross vat of solution.
I don't think you would love that, Brandon.
Been there.
Brandon is handsy with the treatments. I cannot.
But then you can, really make sure that every single inch of the plant is covered in that treatment.
Even the roots, because a lot of pest issues have root problems.
Right?
Oh yeah, and people forget about that. Like things that are sitting on your plant can also be chilling in the soil waiting. Also, they can chill it on the outside of your pots, you guys. Have you seen time lapses of like plant pests? They chill on the outside of the pot waiting to attack again. Clean everything. But people forget about stuff in the roots can also be waiting there to come back on your plant that you just cleaned. Not good.
Yep.
And I also think that some plants that thrive in a more dry environment, I think maybe like spider mites. I'm sure you can absolutely get spider mites on plants in LECA, but I feel like I almost in my head would think it's less likely because they hate like moisture. And I feel like my alocasias that are in LECA, I don't have to worry about them as much. Same thing like in moss, like when it's like, I don't know, a little bit more consistently moist and it's not like a dry little corner there. The mites aren't as likely to attack. I don't know. But that's what I think. We'll see. I have had a couple like eggs, like whatever, on the actual leaves, but I haven't had
I
any
remember
issues
getting,
like
one of those jeweler's loops, whatever you call them. And, like when jewelers like put their eyeballs in it, they can magnify whatever they're looking at. So you can, kind of use that on the plants, and at the higher magnification, you can actually see those little dirty hands.
Oh my God, we should get some.
Well, they're really cool. They're super cheap too. You can get 2 for like $5 on Amazon.
Oh my gosh, that would be fun. But you know what? After because I just had a couple thrip infestations in the last week, I keep getting thrip mail. Yay! And that's fun. How cute.
And I get secondhand thrift mail.
Oh yeah, because I open up all the brandeds and let them loose. Sorry. Well, every flake of dirt, I feel like, is a little thrip whenever there's like a pest problem. So a magnifying glass would be nice or something to see things up close. Because even like Daryl Chang on Instagram, Houseplant Journal, posts a lot of up close pictures of like mites next to his fingernail, and I'm like, I can't believe how tiny they are. Really, you can't tell something's a mite unless it's moving, or you see the webs and you're like, I know these are all mites, but like, yeah, you got to be looking. Anywho, I did ask you a question before we started too, because I had learned when I joined a Facebook group recently that people soak their roots in between going from like soil or whatever to LECA. One, do you do that? Do you recommend it? What do you think?
I would be careful just in general with transitioning roots between different mediums, because soil roots and water roots and LECA roots, they're just adapted to different environments. So I've soaked soil roots before and I had it all rot off. And if the new roots don't come in, you're basically trying to reroot that whole plant. I've also transitioned a plant into LECA and all of the roots rot off. It's just a part of the process. And some plants just don't like their roots disturbed, and
it's a lot of shock.
Yeah, it is a lot of shock.
To water to LECA.
Yep.
That's a lot. And
even when I propagate a plant in water and I'll move it to LECA, I've seen some of those roots rot too. So it's not foolproof that you can transition from one medium to the other. There's always adjustment. But I will say transferring a water propagated plant into LECA is a lot easier than a soil propagated one. And not to say soil ones are hard either, because I would say like out of 10 plants that I transfer, maybe I have one issue. So it's a pretty good success rate if you are diligent in cleaning off the soil and all that stuff.
How many plants do you think you don't have in LECA, or what percentage?
Yeah, I have a few in dirt, and those are the trailing philodendrons. I don't have very good luck with like trailing phyllos in LECA.
I'm imagining that they would be too heavy and that eventually
they'd pull themselves out.
Yeah, they would pull themselves right out.
Well, so my micans is doing beautifully. It's just, it loves the LECA. It's just so lush.
Oh, I should pull one. Don't tempt
my
me.
Cebu.
I might do some props. I actually might do some mic and props that
Do
I
it.
prop in water, and then I'm going to put it into like
Yeah.
that would be
They loved it. Brazil, death.
How many pothos? Pothos I know can be iffy.
Yeah, pothos, I transitioned some from soil to LECA, death. It was like, nope, not having that. But if you water prop them first, it's a better experience. But yeah, I just noticed they don't grow as well either. I had some Cebu blue in LECA, and yeah, it was just kind of yellowish, and it didn't want to play. It just wasn't exotic. But like different plants in different environments are different for everybody. So like my experience in Minnesota may be different from somebody in Arizona.
Yeah, we're up here in zone. We're in 4B, right?
Yeah, we're in 4B.
Used to be in 5B.
Used to be in 5B.
That's
Are
what
we getting
Milwaukee
colder?
was. Or no, yeah, right?
I thought we were 4A and now we're 4B. I think we're getting warmer.
Yeah, because Brandon just moved from Milwaukee, so
Yeah, it's like it goes right through Wisconsin to the warmer, whichever level is the warmer one.
the waves like go through, and then I think there's only is it just the tippy tip of Florida that's like 10?
I don't
10 in
know.
the U.S. I don't know. Look up your zone, guys. I think we've talked about this before. It's fun to learn about. Like literally, online will tell you like what grows best in your climate, outdoors, whatever. I did have a question about my LECA plant. So another plant we have in front of us here, you guys, is my philodendron painted lady, which if you go back on my Tiki Talk, it was my first LECA video I did. It was the first plant I ever put in LECA when I tried Eve's LECA kit long ago. It's exploded. I literally put it in here and it was just one leaf, and it's put out all of this. I recently, because I noticed a lot of the roots were jumbled up at the bottom, I moved it up so that it could breathe a little bit. One, I don't know if I even had to do that.
You don't.
They weren't even coming out the bottom either. I was like, sometimes they like hop from one side to the other, and I'm like, oops. But then, as you can see, the plant put out a pretty tiny leaf right after. What do you think about that?
Plants don't like to be moved. Any root disturbance in soil in LECA, it doesn't like it. So I've had very, very small percentage of me like up potting something in LECA from LECA to LECA. I've had aborting of all the roots. Like it's happened. You see it in soil too. Like sometimes you move plants and they just wilt and die, right? So it's the same in LECA. Plants just don't like their roots disturbed. So don't move them if you don't have to. Just let them bunch up at the bottom, and they'll grow out of the bottom. And that is one of the traditional like hydroponics way of growing. It's called the Crackty method from this guy named Crackety. That's his last name, Professor Crackety, we'll call him. But the idea is that the plant sits in a net pot, and you let you start with a reservoir that's kind of halfway at the in the middle of that net pot, and then as the water level decreases, the roots will extend down into the water and soak up all the water. And so you don't have a wick or anything. It's just the plant is so thirsty for water that it will reach down all the way to the bottom of your pot and it'll soak it all up. And so I've grown basil and all sorts of herbs using that method.
That's what I need to do.
It's amazing.
I can't keep an herb alive.
I guess you should get one of the little, like they have, they're so expensive, oh my gosh, but like a whole like system for like hydroponic plants, and you can do a bunch of little ones.
Because I can't keep up with the water. I can't water an herb twice a day.
Yeah.
That is
put it
not
in
my pay grade.
They try outdoor plants. I mean, I look at my plants all the time, but watering something every day, I cannot keep up on that.
Yeah.
No, all my outdoor plants today, I was like, when I was pulling them out in the rain, I'm like, I watered you 2 days ago. You look like you're going to croak.
So my trick here is get like a sour cream container, like one of the Chop-to-Tater ones, right? You cut a hole in the top lid and you put a net pot in it. You put your basil in it and it'll grow into your reservoir.
I'm almost done with the sour cream.
Is it Chop-to-Tater?
It is.
All right.
There you go. Brandon's actually been trying out like mayo. Brandon's been on like
Oh yeah, I did a research study on mayo. So I have all these mayo. I should have brought it's light mayo.
None of them are labeled because they have these secrets.
But it's obviously a Kraft and a what's the other big mayo?
Hellman's?
Not Hellman's.
What is that?
Kraft and I don't know. Miracle Whip.
Oh.
right? Miracle Whip, that's what it's called.
No, we just clapped for everybody. Headphone users beware. Who knows what's going on? I'm never aware of my microphone. So actually, when I was listening to our last podcast, when we were not the last one, when we were doing our moss pulls, because I wanted to hear you bleed. There was a lot of like that. The audio in that was just awful. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it on my story. I had shared that we were making moss pulls last week, and Brandon, as we were in the middle of talking about how clumsy you are, you literally said, "I hope this podcast doesn't end in blood." And as you're talking about how you're not.
I literally
you're not
said,
prone to bleeding.
I'm like, I'm not prone to bleeding.
You said you're prone to cutting yourself, and then in that moment, you hear a thud. I'm looking down, and all of a sudden I look up, and there's blood everywhere. What the heck? I literally peed a little bit. I'm not kidding. When I say that I peed a little, I really did. I hadn't laughed that hard in a while. Plants are dangerous, you guys. It's a hard world out there.
And with us, you never know where it's going.
Well, as we close, I had one more question. Do you have any future products like in mind besides your like pots and stuff? What are you doing?
I was thinking about putting together a nutrient pack for epiphytes. So, tree growing, tree loving plants, so like Hoyas and orchids. They are light feeders, and there's a lot of, this whole LECA journey has made me a fertilizer fanatic. I read way too much about fertilizers and what works and what doesn't. Not liquid dirt. Don't buy liquid dirt. Throwing it down. Any company that does not publish their guaranteed analysis and they tell you their product works, but they don't tell you what's in it, don't buy it.
Ooh. There you go, guys.
So anyway, through that research, I found some information about how epiphytes are more nitrogen loving, because when you're in that rainforest environment, you get a lot of nitrogen, calcium, and magnesium. Is it magnesium? Yeah.
Sounds right.
From like tree canopies as it's like, raining down on all the plants that are clinging to the trees. You don't necessarily find potassium or phosphorus in the natural environment, not at the level that we feed our plants. So the thinking behind that is the K-Lite fertilizer, which I made the connection probably way too late, but K stands for potassium. And it's just saying the potassium level is reduced. K-Lite. So that formulation is 12-1-1. A lot of fertilizer you see out there is like 20-20-20, or the MSU formula that I really, really love is 13-2-15. So it has a lot of the later elements. So the MSU, that's Michigan State University. Their botany program is just tremendous. So they have all these people that are, horticulturists working in their orchid tents, and that's what I want to be when I grow up. I want to work at MSU and be a professor, a tenure professor, and just grow plants all day.
I see it.
So they have this fertilizer formula called the MSU formulation, and it's for orchids, for houseplants, for everything. And then a spin-off of that is the K-Lite formula, which is really specifically made for epiphytes. So orchids, Hoyas, some type of anthuriums. They just love the stuff. And if you talk to professional growers, they'll say they'll spray, their entire grow tents with orchid mist, and they'll water the orchids, and all the mist will carry over to the houseplants, and they'll just grow huge. So I want to create a nutrient pack around that set of formulations. So it's more of a powdered nutrient, and it also will come with the ridding solution that I use in the LECA kits. And in addition is a probiotic. As we humans keep a healthy digestive system, there is actually a active biome within LECA. You can house all these beneficial bacteria in there, and the orchid probiotics, just any plant probiotics will help develop that root zone biome. So it'll help with uptake of nutrients and help the plant grow better. So yeah, I want to put together like those 3 items, and maybe that's
fancy.
another.
What do you think about that?
I love fertilizers. They're my new jam.
I love LECA. That was my hyperfixation, but now I just want to feed the plants. Now we're feeding. Now that
Now you want to watch it grow.
we made the watering easy, and now we are feeding.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the growth on this guy, just on some base fertilizer, right? Like,
it looks great. Literally, like the variegation too. And my plant grew so much faster than it normally does. Painted Lady in general for me was a really slow grower in terms like compared to all my other philodendrons, and it exploded in LECA. I can't believe it. And I also love being able to watch the roots, you guys, when you're planting them in clear pots. Like, it literally makes you like one with your plant. It's a very intimate thing. It's showing you all what's going on under there. It's fun. Love it. Don't you? Well, I asked, don't you? Like, you can see.
Well, I mean, I got all my plants in my fish tank, so I can see the roots there.
It's fun. It's like to be able to like check on them all the time too, and know like, oh yeah, it looks good down there.
Yeah.
Like things are kicking off.
Also, my fish tank plants, their roots all of a sudden exploded. Like, I need to put more sand because there's not enough.
Oh yeah, I was like,
room for them all.
you have plants in there? I forgot about like aquatic plants. Do you do a lot of propagations in your tank anymore?
Absolutely. Well, propagations, yeah. I thought you were mean like propagating aquatic plants. No, I don't. I just let them do their thing.
So Eve, I have one like mega question at the end, because I think I get this one a lot, and I kind of don't know how to answer it because I'm like, I think yes, but I'm not sure. Can plants live in LECA forever?
yeah, they can.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Just look at Ray, who's been growing orchids for 40 years in LECA.
There you go, guys. 40 years, you'd be lucky. I'd be lucky to keep. Not you. I don't know you guys. I'd be lucky to keep a plant alive for 40 years. I don't know. Brandon, what's your oldest plant? I feel like mine's only a couple of years old. And
Mine's only like,
good for me.
I think my oldest plant is only like 3 years.
Yeah, I was like, my cutting from my dad's a couple of years old. My first monstera. I also have a cactus that I've had for a long time. But yeah, 40 years in LECA. Sign me up.
I mean, not that I plan on having grandchildren, but I would love to have grandchildren just to pass down plants.
Kids and plants. Future plant parents. I don't know, like, no one got me in, like, my parents didn't really get me into plants, so I wonder what that would be like to grow up with, like, a plant parent. Just always around the jungle. Like, oh yeah, my mom has, like, 300 houseplants.
Wow.
Okay, you guys. Well, I hope you guys learned a lot, because I did. Did you learn that? Brandon was sitting here like, oh my god.
I'm like leaning into the table like, this is the most interesting discussion I've ever had.
He's going to go home and polish out that sour cream.
Oh, yeah. Okay, but have you ever dipped Doritos in sour cream?
No. I feel like I would love that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it sounds horrible to you guys, but my boyfriend, he's like a gamer, and it sounds like a gamer thing to do. I don't know. He drinks like Blue Mountain Dew. Sounds like a Blue Mountain Dew type of guy thing to do. But he dips Doritos in like just the normal Doritos nacho cheese in sour cream as like a snack. It's just
It's like a walking taco, but just with
literally,
sour cream.
yeah. It's so good. You should totally work. It's a fun little snack. So yeah, go finish that. Grab you a bag of Doritos out of the vending machine.
Oh no, I've got 4 bags at home.
I do need to go grocery shopping in your kitchen. You keep telling me to do that when I buy chicken nuggets, and you're like, I have chicken nuggets to give you. Okay, guys. Make sure you go follow Eve on Instagram. It's leca.addict. That's correct.
No.
I say it enough.
Got it.
I've got it down. You guys, there's no one out here like dedicating their time to spreading LECA resources like Eve, unless I just haven't been looking. Like, it's hard to find people who are like, I do a lot of plants in LECA. This is what I do. Like, I give advice very like cautiously because I'm like, this is what I do, but like I have like 10-ish plants in LECA, not hundreds. So
yeah, it's been really fun putting together all that information for people. And I get, people messaging me on Instagram and saying, thank you so much for helping me. And a lot of people are very much like me, where they want information before they start. They don't want to kill their plants, right?
They're like, it sounds like a fad, sounds like a trend.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you guys, you can do this. There's some people I'm sure that are like, I didn't think I could keep a plant alive until I found LECA.
Yeah, I mean, look at my pilea. It was sad for like 5 years, and I put it in LECA, and it tripled in size.
Yeah, you guys put your pileas in LECA, okay?
Yeah.
If that's
I
what
feel
you're
like we
thinking
talked.
about-
Did we talk about this on the podcast?
Maybe, I don't know. But
we
I
talked
have-
about it. You're like, you should put that pilea in LECA.
Seriously, you guys, even your little like pups, because that's what I started with, the little pups that you like propagate, throw it in water, root it for a little bit, and put it in LECA. Oh my gosh, because I think people messed up with like pilea a lot with watering. That's one that I think people heavily overwater, and also like the lighting is also really like an issue with it cupping up and down, whatever. But your watering problems will be solved in LECA. It's a miracle. I can't even believe that I have string of hearts growing in LECA. When people are like, "Oh my god, don't water them from the top. They hate moisture." Like, okay. These are in LECA, so.
Yeah, my hearts are a jungle right now. They're just growing like mad.
I'm obsessed. Well, Brandon, where can people find you?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram, BR_Anaconda, Branaconda. You can shop my site, monsteroplant.co, and you can find my new YouTube channel, Brandon Botanical.
Yeah, you have a new video out.
Yeah, I just posted it the other day. I need to film some more. There was
a little part where your editing was like funny, and it was like you said something twice and forgot to delete one of them, and I was like,
sounds about right.
I love it. I was like, I'm not gonna tell him because it's already had like 50 views, and I was like, enough people have seen it. it's just out there now for the world. Is that it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. If you guys want to follow me, I'm on Instagram at Nicole, NAYYCOLE. Nicole Larson with extra N at the end on TikTok. I think that's kind of it.
Yeah. And Eve, do you have anything to plug besides your
anything
social
else?
media?
What do you want to tell people? What do you want to tell the world?
I don't know.
You got a website.
Yeah,
Let's
I got
plug
a
that.
Website, yes. Go to Eve's website.
LECAaddict.com.
Yeah.
That's where all the resources are. So give it a read.
I was just on there the other day. I was like, hey, I'm doing my nutrients now. I'm doing a nutrient video. I can't lie to people.
I will say, I don't know how into like analytics you are with your website, but you are one of the top contenders if you're searching LECA.
Really?
Yeah, I saw my SEO is pretty darn good.
Mm-hmm.
Dang, aren't you guys? I mean, people get into the LECA, you guys. It's not as scary as it seems. Try it out. Go find Eve. Are you taking questions in the DMs?
Yeah. If you have a question, send it over.
Awesome.
Yeah, I like to help.
Hey, well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I learned so much.
This is a delight.
This
was a treat.
And thank you for bringing me this Hoya. Okay, you guys, you will not believe this if you're still listening. There's a Hoya here in front of me, and it's mine now.
So I'll have you know, I'm doing an experiment with this exact plant. This is my extra. This is my first variegated WAWG. But my experiment is with 3 of these. One's in soil, one's in LECA, and one's in pond. And I'm going to try to see which one is going to be the happiest.
Yeah, please document that. We'd love to know.
Yeah, I am just amazed that the soil one is still alive.
Is that like, is it, because I suppose you don't have any other Hoyas in LECA, or in soil, do you? All of them are...
I have a really big Chelsea, and I just look at it and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to even tackle that.
Well, guys, if you're a Hoya person too, also follow Eve, because there's, it's hard to find people that are into Hoyas unless I'm just like avoiding them. There's special Hoya people all over the place. Eve's one of them. Big on LECA, big on all that. So, yeah. Hope you guys have a good weekend. You're looking great today, even though I can't see you. I know you do. Anything else, Brandon?
I don't know.
Words?
I think
hear
that's
the music coming in
Yeah.
my brain, so...
It's really funny because when you say the music's coming, usually it like pans out like where it's
Really?
supposed to be.
I just say that, you guys, just because, but we know it's there. So have a good weekend. Keep growing, all the things.
We'll see you next week.
Next week.
'Cause it's Thursday now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is Thursday. We will see you next week. What are we talking about? Who knows? Come and find out. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.